The 2012 Southeast Regional Sporting Clay Championship was held June 28th through July 1st in Nashville. The big stories of the tournament were the extreme heat and Brandon Powell's impressive performance. Record-breaking temperatures on Friday and Saturday directly affected scores across the board and made Powell's feat all the more amazing. We sent DeltaSports.tv's Justin Burgess out to the Tennessee Clay Target Complex to bring back the story.
Hi, I'm Justin Burgess here with DeltaSports.tv, and we're bringing you all of the coverage from the Southeastern Regional Tournament here in Nashville, Tennessee. Heat is definitely going to be a factor this weekend, and it's going to affect shooters of all different levels. This is the second day of competition here on Friday. Prelims are going on today, Fit Task, and other events also as well. So, second day of shooting, it should be interesting to see how the scores turn out. Now let's go and check out some of the footage from the preliminary rounds on Friday.
Average highs expected for this time of year in Nashville are usually in the low to mid-90s, but by the time the shooters began arriving for Friday's competition, the temperature was nearing 100, and the Delta Sports video team could tell there were some extreme conditions in store for the weekend. Coverage began that morning at 8, and by the time lunch rolled around, the thermometer was sitting on a scorching 105. After a quick break, the team headed back out to finish up the prelim and feed task coverage, and by 2 p.m., the mercury had topped 109. The targets for the weekend were set by Chuck Frazier.
Talked to a couple of the shooters yesterday, said it was a very technical course. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that and ask how you had it set up in your own mind.
It was. I usually set a pretty technical course. That one might have been a little bit too much for the heat that we had, but I think it was a good course. We were looking for a few higher scores, but it was all right.
Right, definitely the heat would probably be a factor there with the shooters.
The heat is a big factor. It's going to be a big factor today, too, I think.
The prelim event was shot over 2 days, beginning on Thursday, and took place on the paved course that winds through the trees at the northwest end of the complex, along the Cumberland River. Brandon Powell began the weekend by posting a 91 on what turned out to be a tough preliminary course. David Radulovich, Scott Robertson, and Will Fennell each shot 91s as well, forcing a shoot-off. In the end, Powell took HOA, and Radulovich was runner-up. Robertson claimed M1 and Fennell M2. Feed Test was shot in the open field at the north end of the complex and featured a challenging variety of presentations. Parcours 1 through 3 faced northwest, but Parcours 4 faced directly west and made the targets difficult to pick up for those with afternoon rotations. Most thought Parcours 3 was the toughest, and a look at the scores proved this to be the case. Brandon Powell ran Parcours 1 and 3 on his way to a 96, which was enough for HOA, 3 targets ahead of runner-up Scott Robertson.
Day one here from the main event in Nashville. Heat definitely going to be the main story. High up about 108 yesterday. Temperatures expected to be about the same today. Going to affect scores directly and indirectly. We talked with the trap setter earlier. He mentioned how the clays will actually soften in the heat and not break on impact. So a direct impact on the shooter's scores.
If you take a clay target in 100+ degrees that's setting out in the sun, yesterday we had targets that we could actually put in our hand and just fold up into a taco shell.
Really?
Because of the heat. So it's breaking the pitch down a little bit. Normally a target is pretty brittle, so when you hit it, it breaks good. It's very possible that yesterday in that heat, some of the targets could have been hit that wouldn't break because of the target wasn't brittle anymore. It was kind of soft, especially if they set on a trap on the throwing plate very long. That throwing plate was really hot. You couldn't touch them with your hands.
Definitely an interesting dynamic. We'll have to see how it turns out today. Could have affected the shooter scores yesterday in the prelims, but we'll have to see for the main event today.
The white prelim course became the red main course and was by all accounts the more technical of the two. Blue was set on the revamped woods course that occupies the area northeast of the skeet fields and would turn out to be the harder of the two, with distance and speed coming into play on stations set in an open meadow toward the end of the course. Flights at 8:30, 11:30, and 2:30 accommodated the 328 main event shooters, with heat making life difficult for those on the middle rotation. By the time the 11:30 flight got underway, the temperature was over 100 and had topped 109 before the rotation ended. several shooters and trappers had to be treated for heat-related issues. At the end of what turned out to be a long day one, Gavin Miles and Doug Vine had each posted a 96 on red, while Brandon Powell hit 94 over on blue. Powell's score would turn out to be the best blue score posted all weekend. Day 2 of the main dawned bright, clear, and hot once again, but with the promise of some relief from the heat. The high was only expected to be 107. 8 of the top 10 from day 1 had shot the easier red course on Saturday, with scores ranging from the Miles Vine 96 to John Kruger's 91. Facing red on Sunday were Powell and sub-junior Will Hinton, who had scored a 91 on blue. With only a 5-target spread among the caliber of shooters that occupied the top 10, it was really anyone's game going into the final day, with one very important caveat. Of those top 10, 7 were flighted at 11:30, finishing the main during the hottest part of the day. Could shooters maintain their consistency and focus in the sweltering heat? It was going to be an interesting finish. Day 1 leaders Gavin Miles and Doug Vine shot on blue, and their scores confirmed the sentiments of many about the course's difficulty. Miles shot at 11:30 and could only manage an 87 in the heat for an overall score of 183. Vine, shooting the slightly cooler 8:30 flight, posted an 86 for an overall 182. Junior Theo Ribbs shot at 8:30 as well and turned in the best red score of the day, posting a strong 95 for a 184 overall. Brandon Powell and Jeff Vick hit the red course for the final flight of the tournament, with every other contender in the clubhouse. They used the cooler rotation to cement their victories. Powell added a 93 to his 94 blue for an HOA score of 187. Vick turned in a 94 to bring his total to a 185 overall and claim runner-up. Theo Ribbs' 184 held up for third. At the end of a record-breaking weekend for Nashville weather, Brandon Powell had once again proven himself to be one of the sport's most talented shooters, sweeping the event. He claimed HOA in the prelim, 5-stand, VTAS, and main, and did so under the most extreme heat Nashville has ever seen.
Talking here with Brandon Powell, the winner of the main event here this weekend in Nashville. Not only the main event, Brandon, what else did you win this weekend?
Well, as of right now, the scoreboard shows that I won the VTAS, the prelim, and a shoot-off yesterday, obviously, and there's a shoot-off as of right now for 5-stand for a 99.
And you're involved in that also?
Correct.
Okay, well that sounds good. Talk to us about the heat. What did you think about the heat this weekend?
Extremely hot. This is probably one of the hottest events I've ever shot. 13 years of shooting. It was extreme. It was more of an endurance test than anything. You could stay hydrated. You could do everything that you could to try and keep cool, but it's still just being out in the heat and the sun beating on you all day it was an endurance test is what it was.
Right. Talk to us about the course. Did you think it was more soft, more technical? What's your take on that?
Well, I think the red course that we shot today, it had a lot of closer stuff on it, but it had some technical stuff. There was a lot more technical stuff that I thought on the red versus we shot blue yesterday.
Right.
And I thought the blue just had a lot longer stuff on it. It only really had 5 stations that had longer targets. And then it had a lot of stuff that was just right there, basically a lot of gimme stuff that you couldn't give up. But I definitely think that overall the blue shot harder. Scores showed that. But the red was definitely more technical. A lot of dropping, going away, climbing, a lot of stuff with compound leads. So I think it was definitely a tougher course.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think the heat affected the older shooters more than the younger shooters? What's your take on that?
Well, I'm pretty young, and I think it affected me, so I know it had to have affected everybody. It had to have.
Yeah.
It was just extremely hot.
All in all, the 2012 Southeast Regional Championship was a big success, with shooters praising Chuck Frazier's targets and the efficiency with which the tournament was run. Whether one was squatted early or late really didn't matter because the heat affected everyone, and every scorecard featured a few extra O's because of it. And so, once again, weather played a big part in shaping the outcome of a major event. Can anyone remember a tournament when it didn't? Such is the game of sporting clays. I'm Mark McGraw with DeltaSports.tv.